I don't know if it's okay.
Hello, guys. I am so excited. This is my Nana, who is my favorite person in the whole world. I'll tell you one of my favorite memories with Nana. She was the first person to come and visit me in the hospital when I had my first baby.
Mhm.
And she sat down on the bed next to me. And when the nurse came in, she saw us and she said, "Are you her mother?" And I, we said, "No, she's my grandma." And I was so happy because my life dream is to look just like Nana for every moment, like every time. Like, I hope that I look like Nana looked, when she was my age. And I hope I just look like
All
Nana
those
the
years ago.
whole way.
Yes.
Yes. But Nana is amazing. And she's had this like incredible life. And she's out here because of a funeral in the family.
Mhm.
And man, all yesterday, I just thought, Nana is like the shining star of our family." And I thought, oh, I just want to interview Nana about her sage wisdom and hear everything that you want to tell me and also everyone in the whole world about, I don't know, being like vibrant and living an exciting life and being happy even when hard things happen. Because I feel like you've seen a lot of tragedy and a
Mhm.
lot of like terrible stuff,
Mhm.
and you just like keep going
Yeah,
and you just be amazing every day.
I know.
No one can stop you.
No,
Yeah.
they better get out of my way.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Oh my
Move
gosh.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to hear about it. Can we hear, can we just hear a little bit about your life for a minute just to start?
Where do you want me to start?
Anywhere. Well, we could start with how you met Grampy and like you dated and got married. It's kind of a good story.
I met my sweetheart when I was 13 years old. He was barely 16, but he did have a car, which he had just obtained, and a driver's license. And he asked me to a football game in the small town that we lived. And my parents knew his parents very well, and they thought that he looked totally harmless and that I would not be attacked in the car. But it was all the way to Salt Lake City from Bountiful, and they were a bit worried about that. We had a set time frame. We went to the football game. I can't even remember who lost. It was West against East, and I'd have to go back and look. And then we went to the oh, it was, what were they called? Where you would drive up and you would talk into the hot shops. We went to the hot shops for a hamburger afterwards.
Oh,
Do they even exist
no.
anymore?
So I don't even
We
know what
went
that
to the
means.
hot shops and we're sitting there, and I'm over here with my little thing on the and telling them what I want, and he's over there with the little machine telling them what I want. And we kind of looked at each other and started to laugh, and he looked at his watch and he says, "Your mom and dad are going to be really upset because if we eat, we're going to be late." And we didn't. We unhooked him and drove away so that I would be home when my parents said I had to be home, because I looked at him that day and I knew in my heart he was the one for me. And he told me later he felt the same way. We were. And it wasn't it I graduated from high school and we got married.
And how old were you?
17.
Yep, it's true.
And we were married almost 64 years. So there you are. It can be done. It isn't a death sentence if you get married when you are still maybe preparing for life, because we prepared together. And it
Oh,
was a wonderful thing.
I love that, Nana.
It was true. Yeah.
Okay, so right now on YouTube, I'm doing this big series about romance,
Mhm.
and for February. So maybe so like were married for 64 years so long, and you
Yes.
still are, of course.
Yes, I still am.
Still am.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, what kind of wisdom can we hear from you?
Patience,
Patience.
understanding, perseverance is a good one. Overlooking a lot of stuff that really doesn't matter. I will say, if you want to get into a more religious nook, it's being able to pray together and not going to bed unhappy with each other, and which is sometimes hard to do.
But you really did that.
We really did that. Honestly, we really truly concentrated on doing that, because needless to say, his parents were not entirely thrilled. Mine were not thrilled, even though he was safe. And
Like, they weren't thrilled that you guys got married.
No, they thought we should wait for a while. My parents wanted me to go to at least 1 year at the University of Utah. He was at the University of Utah, and, the there were other things that his parents wanted him to do that did not involve me, and so they were very upset when he looked and said, "No, we have a life, and we, want to start our life, and we loved each other, and we knew that there were some things that, we had to do by ourselves, and it was up to us to make it work." And we did.
When you say by ourselves, you don't mean separate from him.
No,
You
no,
mean
no.
by yourselves together, separate
Right,
from your
right.
families.
We were a unit. And I think over the years, the one thing that solved our problem for us is that uh, I'm a great talker and he was a great talker. And we loved to discuss all the possibilities. Plus, he was a great planner. We didn't look at today. We did look at today to get to do what we had to do. We looked at next week a little bit because we still knew we had goals that stretched. 10 years was our goal plan, and every year we stretched it. One more year. What do we want to be doing in 10 years? It was never like, oh, well, I'm not going to worry about it, because we did. And maybe it's because of the age that we were, at the time that we were, it had to do a lot with where the possibilities that were available, which were at that time fairly numerous, especially for him, after he finished with school, and where we went and the things that we did. It was also political. I've been asked many, many times, is there anything in your life that changed how you and your husband readjusted your thought or goal or life plan? And that was the assassination of John F. Kennedy.
Oh,
I know.
okay.
Is that surprising?
Yes. Well, I've never asked you that question that so
No.
many people are asking you. Okay, so let's hear more about this.
Well, it was the realization that actually there are possibilities in this world that happen with people that not necessarily admire, but he was the president of the United States, and we thought he was invincible. We thought there was no way that anything could happen to our government, that we were the safety unit of the entire world, that anything for us was a possibility. And yes, we were described as isolationist country.
Like as a country, yeah.
Then, but when he was assassinated, and then the following Martin Luther King and his brother Robert pointed out to us that we are so responsible for our own existence and our own happiness, and we can't depend on someone else to make it for us or keep us safe. That was our responsibility. It wasn't the government's or a person. Our belief in Jesus Christ and our Father in heaven was increased, and that's where we put that was our safety net, was the church.
Oh, wow.
Did that make sense at all?
Yeah, it did. So kind of one thing that you're saying is that like maybe you hadn't consciously put a sense of security and safety in the government, but like that moment kind of woke you up and said, oh, we can't do that.
Right.
Like we didn't realize we had trusted so much, but like we can't do that. We're
we had
responsible
no
for ourselves.
realization, and we lived in California at the time, and Grampy was going to school, and Ron, his name was Ron, still is, was going to school, and he worked for the National Aeronautics Space Administration. He was working on the Apollo project. We thought that we were so safe and so secure, and we were always ahead of the rest of humanity. And having that happen pointed out that no, things can turn on a dime. And if you are not prepared mentally and physically, monetarily, save your money, make plans, don't be frivolous, that things happen and they change your life. And that did change a little bit how we thought and where we wanted to raise our children. And it wasn't in California.
Where was it?
Well, actually, it was a variety of places. As it turns out, we lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico, 3 different times. We lived in Arizona. We lived in California, as I mentioned. We lived in Tennessee. We lived in Europe twice, Vienna, Austria, which we absolutely loved, which culturally people expanded our horizon. Moving across the country expanded our horizon, because any kind of pocket in the country that you go to live, the South, the Midwest, They speak differently, they eat different food, they have different ideals, they have different values than how I was raised and he was raised, one block from each other in Bountiful, Utah. They didn't believe the same things we believed. They didn't act the same things. They didn't raise their children with the same values that I wanted my children to have. But that doesn't need to stop you. That didn't need to stop anything. It just strengthened us into realizing that the things that 10-year plan was working, that it was a possibility, because it never ended. When he passed away last year, it had never ended, because he knew he wasn't going to live, but he had made my 10-year plan. And it was keep going.
I love that so much, Nana.
Don't sit on your bottom and think everything is really swell. Just keep going, moving on. And that's always been, you have two choices in the morning. When you get up, you can either be miserable or you can be happy that you have a new, fresh day. I choose the latter, the new, fresh day. And no, every day is not pleasant. That's the way every day goes. Yes, there are days where you think that you won't make it until 5 o'clock in the afternoon, but guess what? 5 o'clock in the afternoon comes and you're still alive and you can go to bed and start over. So I'm not saying perfection is the ideal, because perfection can't be the ideal. Are you perfect?
No, nope.
Is my daughter Amy sitting right there, my firstborn, perfect? I
Maybe.
say, like Mary Poppins, she's practically perfect in every way. But I truly believe that. I think you are too, in almost every way. So we all have to evolve. You have to become, I'm not the same person I was when I was 17. I learned German when I was 40 years old. Did I want to do that? Not necessarily, but did I want to have food to eat? Yeah, we did. And did I want to deal with the electricity guy that couldn't speak any English? And I did all kinds of movements. Did I want to deal with him? No. Did I want to deal with my housefrau who thought that I was an idiot because I crossed against the light and didn't realize there was a light there?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
In Austria.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, in Austria. I mean, it's learning new rules, new laws, being obedient. The first law of heaven from the time I was in primary is what?
Obedience.
It's obedience. And if you don't learn to be an obedient person, you're going to end up dead on the sidewalk.
But who are you obedient to?
Well, I am obedient, first of all, to my Father in heaven. I will have to say that.
Yeah.
I honestly feel that way. Then I was fairly obedient to my self next, because I think, like everyone, you set goals, you know where you're going. You want to find maybe not the easiest way to get there, because sometimes the way of getting there is like hanging on to the rod of iron and moving forward. If you don't hang on, sometimes you can slip and fall and your shoes get dirty and your dress isn't beautiful. And so you just kind of have to press forward and move on.
Yeah.
So that's our job. Otherwise, what do you become?
Yeah.
A blob.
Mess. A blob. Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
My grandpa he was a nuclear engineer, nuclear scientist, and
Yeah.
he worked for NASA, and then he worked for the IAEA, like the UN, the United Nations International
The Atomic Energy
Agency in Vienna. And so that's why they traveled everywhere, dealing with all kinds of global emergencies relating to nuclear everything. He was on vacation during Chernobyl.
Yep.
So he got to miss out on that.
However, he did go to 3 Mile Island, and that was years ago, and most people maybe watching don't even know what 3 Mile Island is or was, in which case, Google it up and it will tell you everything you want to know. Google up Chernobyl. There it is. You don't even have to go. And you will learn all about it. But it's when we were in Vienna during Chernobyl, because we were in London. He was in London working. Chernobyl happened, and we got in our car and drove straight home across the big pond, not across the big pond, but on the ferry to the mainland, and drove from France all the way back to Austria. But he was on the team that was helping to get the people out.
Oh, wow.
And to then assess the damage that had been done by Chernobyl falling, and how long people could live, the dirt quality, the air quality, the big cloud that was going to fly over Vienna and drop all of the nasty stuff. So we actually did not have anything fresh to eat for months.
Oh
So
my.
people, are you prepared to have the big cloud? I don't care where it comes from or what it is, but clouds come in everybody's life. To realize that if you're not prepared, you will starve to death. I can guarantee it. And are you prepared to be able to find food for yourself that you can eat? We did.
Were
We,
people like very terrified at the time?
people were terrified.
Like, what was
And
it like living in Vienna? Chernobyl just happened. You're living on canned foods that you have in your house, I
right,
guess.
right. Plus,
What about all these people that like never bought a canned
okay,
food?
the one thing that was the biggest problem, and for me as an American, was the refrigerators were about the size of a postage stamp. You actually could not store anything. When the due date came on the bottle of milk, they meant it. It turned into sludge the next day. But Austria is a very interesting country in that they did not import hardly anything from another country. They were
Oh, wow.
pretty well self-sufficient because they had cows, they had meat, they had a lot of sausage that had been aged in places that was safe. The main problem was there were no fresh, you couldn't buy lettuce or strawberries
Oh, stuff that
or,
had been outside.
right, anything outside.
Mm.
You could butcher a cow, but that didn't count. So even though food was scarce and we had managed to put things in our little extra room, and we lived in a very small flat that was 5 floors up, that I had to carry the
Did you say it
groceries
was
up.
like 500 square feet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
like very tiny.
And you can do it, honest, and carry the stuff up the stairs. They did have an elevator in there that I think was probably manufactured in.
That sounds terrifying.
It was terrifying because it would go,
Oh my
and
gosh.
and you're thinking, okay, next floor, I'm getting out and I'm going to walk the rest of the way. So basically, I walked up and down the stairs myself. People were very, very generous. We helped each other. Church helped each other. We all worked together. You cannot be all by yourself because that's impossible. You would not survive. We shared. And I tell my children, that word to me is almost one of the most horrible words in the vocabulary, sharing. Children don't like to share. Adults don't like to share. What do you like to share? Really? What do you
It's
share?
true. People don't like sharing.
They don't share, but we did. And we took things to church. We took things to our neighbors who were not Americans. We did not live on what they call the economy. We did live on the economy, not in the enclave with the rest of the Americans that were there, because we wanted to experience their life. They didn't so much want to experience my life because we were spoiled Americans. But being able to participate in something like that where everyone was needy, it didn't matter where you came from, what color you were, what religion you were, what your ethnic beliefs were, it didn't matter anymore because you were just a human being that needed food. And we worked together to make that happen. And it was a life learning experience.
Wow.
Yep.
I've never heard this before. This is all like brand new
So,
to me.
well,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, you weren't even on Earth.
That's very true. I was not. It was not a
Right.
thing.
I think your mom and probably heard us talking about it. Is that not true? Yep. So but what you do with your life and how you are, we could have gotten on a plane, I'll be very honest, and flown back to America. We could have done that. And we were offered that opportunity by our embassy. Do you want to leave? No, we did not want to leave, nor did we did not leave. And never even considered it, because you have to live your life as best you can wherever you are. I live in Pennsylvania at the moment. I'm making plans to move to South Dakota. And everyone will go, do you know where South Dakota is? Some people, I went to a funeral yesterday, and some people didn't know where Pennsylvania was. So if you're not into geography, you might think about it. You can also Google that up. But just ask for the big map of the US and
read the tiny words.
read the fine print. Here's where you don't want to go. Now, if you want to know where not to go, just ask Allie, because I think she knows. He's like, don't go there. But you won't like one thing about it. And I have been to some of those places, but I do appreciate the people that do live there and the way that they live. And they look at me and say, would I be an American? Not on your life. I wouldn't trade my life for yours in a second. They wouldn't.
Yeah.
So I
Oh
don't know.
man, Nat, I have like so many questions for you now.
Oh, good.
I know, but I'm like, where do we start? One thing I know everybody is going to want to know, because like the flat Earth thing and like the moon landing thing, everybody's like all of them. So 1 second, my grandpa was involved in the Apollo projects and worked for NASA, and he definitely did believe that the Earth was round and that we landed on the moon.
He did.
Okay, just clarifying that if people are wondering, that was his official stance.
Well, you have to understand that the part of the Apollo that he worked on was the ascent stage from the moon. So the astronauts are flying around, they're coming down to land on the moon, and he was responsible with 4 other guys to get the ascent stage off the moon back to the spaceship, if you want to call it a spaceship. Okay. So his responsibility with this team that he was on was to kind of invent, if you want to use that word, the heat shield that was underneath, that as it took off, the flame that boosts you off the moon or wherever did not burn you up too. It had to stay intact and get you off the moon back to the ship. That was his job. And they worked on that. And when they said we're going to fly, because Kennedy had said John F. had said we are going to get a man on the moon by a certain date. You can Google that up too. Anyway, they worked on that project. I think it took them 6 weeks to come up with the tiles that went on the bottom that would keep those astronauts alive. And that's what he did. But he worked on the Apollo for years.
Oh, wow. And the heat shield that he worked on at least used to be in the front of the Air and Space Museum.
Right.
Like right when you walk in on the left side,
There
it
it
was like
was.
right there. So
There
every
it
time
was.
we went, so I grew up right outside of there. And so
Yep.
we'd go and say, oh, Grandma invented that.
Yes, but it's true. And it was hard work and it was long hours. And some days he didn't come home. But I knew how important it was to him and the nation, and at that point in our life, the world, actually, because the space race was a huge thing. The Russians were after us. We were doing all kinds of weird things, and they were too. And we'd send up a dog, they'd send up a dog, they'd send up a guinea pig, they'd send up a guinea. So then they'd put the man, they'd go around once or twice, and then they'd come back, then they'd go 4 times around, and then they'd come back, and then all of a sudden one day they say, oh, by the way, we need that heat shield and to get him off the moon. And you're going, oh, wait,
Oh
that
my
next?
goodness.
But yeah, no, it was an exciting time of life. The 60s were not just LSD, not just hanging off the Golden Gate Bridge with no clothes on, because we lived in California and we experienced that. It wasn't just crazy people doing weird things. It was hardworking individuals that made, America great, because they did. And I think it still holds today. So there you are.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I asked Grampy if he believed in aliens after having worked at NASA forever. And I asked him that over Thanksgiving a few years ago. And he kind of like turned kind of red, and he's like, why would you ask me that? And I'm like, do you believe in aliens? He's like, why would you he like didn't answer me. Did he believe in aliens?
I think he possibly did.
Okay. Just checking. I really wanted to know. I was like, do you know secrets about aliens? And he was like, why are you asking me? He wouldn't answer me.
The unfortunate part is he knew a lot of secrets about a lot of things that he never told anybody. And he
That's
never
true.
discussed. He didn't tell me. And he said, because I signed a paper and I have a clearance that says I would probably be shot at dawn if I said anything. And he never did. To his dying day, he never did.
It's true. And after he passed, there were a bunch of awards
Yes.
that we don't know who gave them to him or why.
Or why. But
yeah, there's like no record, but he got a lot of awards. So.
Well, from a lot, not just American ones, from a lot of different countries, because he worked very, very hard and he was very good at what he did. He was very conscientious, but he always had a plan. He never did anything without investigating every single possibility, everything that could go wrong, as far as you could go, because things always go wrong. He investigated every positive thing. He looked at every option that he could possibly think of, and he worked a lot at night. He would get up in the night and say, I've got this great thing, I've got to go work on it. And he would,
Like he'd wake up at like 2 in the morning and get
yes,
up and work.
oh, he would. And he would go in his office, and then he would say, he'd come back in and he'd get in the shower and he'd look at me and he'd say, I had inspiration. And I said, was it the Holy Ghost? Well, maybe it was the Holy Ghost. Did you pray about it? Well, yeah, maybe I did pray about it. Well, okay. But then did you come up with something yourself? And he says, yes, something that will actually work on Earth. So,
And he invented a lot of stuff.
He
He was
did.
the world's leading expert in the transportation of radioactive and hazardous materials.
material. Yep.
So one thing I would love to hear a little bit about is the time that he was solving problems about pirates.
Ah,
These are like real pirates.
These are like
on the high seas.
on the high seas. And he
Now.
was sent to Nigeria, where 15 years ago. No, 15 years ago he went. And they went to Nigeria because Nigeria was a police state. He had bodyguards, but he went out on a boat and he actually looked at all of the pirate ships, and they would say, don't move, don't wiggle. But he would surreptitiously take pictures and the things that they had on their boats, the guns.
Could he, let's see, 15 years ago, I had a flip phone. Did he have like a camera that he was taking pictures on?
He did.
Not a phone.
No, he had a regular camera.
Click, click.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so
And
taking secret camera pictures
right. And
on a pirate ship
because the
in Nigeria.
Yes, in
off
Nigeria.
the coast of Nigeria.
And then they took him inland a little bit to see where they were actually living and breathing. And they would go out at night. They would just destroy different things. And no, it was in fact, this was one of the times when we had to sign some papers that if he didn't actually come home, they were terrified he would be kidnapped. And he wasn't, because I don't think they really wanted him. He would have been a pain in there. You know what? He would have said, just get out of my case and I can swim home. He had medical problems, but he was a great swimmer. Anyway.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So no, the pirate thing was a big deal. There were other things, but that was a hugely frightening experience. Some of the
Because you stayed home.
I did. Oh
yeah, you're not going to the police state.
No
way.
No, I did not go to.
And that was like a long time ago, right? All the stuff.
Oh,
I mean, it may be going on in various iterations now, but
I think it's still going on. I never went to anything that was. I didn't go to Syria. I didn't go to the Middle East. He went.
But he went all sorts of places.
He did, but no, it was not safe for me to go. First of all, because women are not a welcomed entity in a lot of those places due to religious constraints and just how their political personalities
like
are.
political.
Yeah. You just don't go there. We spent a great deal of time in Egypt. I could go there. A great deal of time in China. I did go there. Singapore. I did go there. But Australia, that's fairly safe. But no, he never wanted me to go to a place that I would be endangered. Or the only place in Egypt that was in Egypt, and I was not allowed to go anywhere by myself, and I had men that took me, and they did not like it. They did not like me.
Ooh,
so
you had a mean bodyguard?
I did.
I'm sorry, Nana.
I did. So no, it was very interesting, but you know, you can run scared or you can embrace it and say, you know what? I'm so darn glad. I loved my husband's job. I loved it. I supported him every second of every day because he loved it. I loved it. Our children benefited from it. Our grandchildren benefited from it. We learned, we grew, our horizons were expanded. So I think if anything I would say to anybody is if you go through a day and you don't learn at least one new thing, something's really wrong with you. You must be in a coma.
Go learn something.
Yes. And I don't care really what it is. It doesn't have to be a good thing because not everything's a good thing, right? So study ants. I live in Pennsylvania. We have an ant problem. Well, if you study the ant and you know how to kill them, you're way better off.
That's true.
Yeah.
So, um, so one of the thoughts that I'm having, so all of your whole family stayed in Bountiful, Utah, or like
They
the
did.
surrounding area, and they always kind of
Yes.
viewed you and my grandpa as like super weirdos because you like
They
left
called us
the town.
escapees.
The escapees. Oh my goodness. Because they thought Grampy's mom thought he didn't have a real job, right?
She always thought that he was psychologically impaired because he couldn't hold a job, because he couldn't keep a job. And Ron tried to explain to his own mom and his own dad that the reason that we moved so much was because of where he needed to be
For his job.
for his job,
which he was keeping.
that he was never ever unemployed. Even until the day he died, he was still doing
He literally
contractual
was working up
until he died.
that moment.
So no, they just never understood that his job required him to be in certain places at certain times at certain government labs in different places in the US, because that's where they did that certain thing. And it was a difficult thing, but given the time that when my in-laws were born and my parents were born, people barely had cars. Refrigerators hardly existed.
Like when you were a kid.
When I was a kid, no one ever thought there'd be a cell phone, or heaven forbid a computer, or I mean, and that was all alien to they didn't understand that.
Yeah.
So to have him move as we moved our children, and
he was living this high-tech life,
right,
and they were like still getting used to having fridges and
well,
cars.
they were getting used to the milkman not coming anymore and leaving it on your porch.
Oh my gosh, and he's a nuclear engineer.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so recently I read this thing. We have like 10 minutes. Recently I read this thing that said that aging is let me remember how he put it. Basically, like, aging is the pursuit of comfort, and as long as you're willing to be uncomfortable, then you don't age the same way. Like, basically, like, getting older, like, people start feeling old when they stop being willing to do things that are uncomfortable. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on that, because I was thinking Grampy had a lot of medical problems.
He did.
I mean, your hands, I
Yep.
think, give you pain every day. Like, are you like, you experience physical pain every single day, and you like get up and you work through the pain and you like have this good life, and so did he, and you both were just very willing to be uncomfortable because having a good life requires discomfort. Would you agree with this? Like, can I hear
Totally.
your thoughts about this?
I totally agree. As far as my hands and the arthritis, this might sound a little bit out there, but I do believe in mind over matter, and it hurts as badly as you want it to hurt, or it feels as good as you want it to feel. No, there are days I can't open a lid on a soda pop can or a bottle of water, or but I have an appliance that will twist it for me that doesn't hurt. But I don't have the strength in my hands to do just the lid. You learn to deal, or you fall prey to the thought that if I can't do it, then I might as well give up. But his philosophy, and he impressed me to the point that I also believe it is, that if you have a problem, you investigate the solution and then you work the solution. You don't stop living just because it hurts you to get out of the chair. So maybe the problem is that you don't exercise enough and you're sitting in the chair far too much. And moving around, going places, learning things, doing things is how I feel about life. And even though I miss my sweetheart desperately every single day, I don't want him to be disappointed when he looks at me again and says, "What were you thinking? Get out of that chair, do something. I like Hallmark movies." Well, you maybe watched too many Hallmark movies that day, but so maybe just move it down to one. But but go out and walk up and down the street. Say hi to the neighbors. Do you know who your neighbors are? Do you know their kids' names? Do you know where they came from? How they live? Go to church. Experiment. Do things. And if sometimes you fail, well, okay, get over it. Don't do it again. I don't know how you really want me to answer that, Ellie, because I sometimes think that I am terrified of doing some things I think are impossible, and I look at myself and say, how do you know it's impossible until you try?
Yeah. There's this trending audio on Instagram right now that says, don't say you can't do it. Say you haven't done it yet.
Well, and I think that as you get older, the aging thing, that fear does sit in. You don't want to fall down. You don't want to get sick. You don't want to be angry with your children because they just don't understand what it's like to be 82. Well, how could they? They aren't. But I do remember what it's like to be your age, Amy's age. I do remember that. And I won't even say vaguely because I do remember, but uh, television and the things that you see on TV make you fearful. Because they present all of the illnesses and here's the drug that you can take to make it better. It really doesn't. But if you live in fear, you will be fearful. But if you live in anticipation that this is maybe an exciting time and it might be a mistake and then you don't do it again, you realize, oh, nope, that's not for me. And I've done that. I said, that's not for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to go skydiving. No, I really don't. I don't really want to go skiing anymore. I used cross country. I don't want to do that. Looking downhill is, I think, frightening. But there you are. So I don't do that. But I don't really have to do that anymore either.
That's true.
There are some things that you don't have to do anymore.
That's very
You do have to comb your hair. You do have to take a bath. You do have to wash your clothes. You do have to vacuum. And there's some things that you can't live without. And I like all those things.
Yeah,
So
that's good. I had one more question for you about that, about fear, about do you still occasionally feel fear about things? Do you, or do you just feel like, you know what? Life is good. I don't know.
no,
How do you
I feel both. Life is good. And I am very blessed because, as I said, my husband and I made plans. We knew that he was not going to live for a great length of time, and we made plans. But there are some things that he did that I have been faced with having to do as a widow that to me were fearful, but I had no choice. I had to do them. So you can either suck it up and get it done and not procrastinate and not put it off because it won't go away. So if you have a fear of something, my philosophy is that conquer it immediately.
eat the frog first?
Yes, really. And then move on. And if you didn't like the taste, don't you might not have to do it again. It's the paperwork of life that is fearful and boring that people avoid because you can just shove it to the side and you think, well, I don't have to do that today. But if you don't have to do it today, the bad news is you have to do it tomorrow and or the next day. And if you let that fear grow in you day after day after day, you will never be able to conquer it. And I refuse to do that. I do it the very day it has to be done because I know my own self that if I let it go, the fear will grow. And I cannot handle that in my life. I do not want to be fearful.
Oh man, that's so funny. I feel like I'm the same way where like I'm really good at dreading things.
Yeah.
And what I've learned is if I don't do it right away, then I just dread it forever. So you just do it.
I think the problem too is that you think you can't. We think we can't do something, and I don't know why we do that. Maybe, I mean, it's like my mother used to say, don't play in the street, honey, because the car will surely smush you. Or, you can't eat dirt. I did eat dirt and it didn't kill me. It didn't taste good either. So I only did that one. And I think that little tap on my butt from my mom in the 1940s was probably a reminder. There are just some things that you don't do. But that isn't necessarily fear. That's a reality. There are some things you just don't do because they're going to harm you. But you have to face your fears and move on. So otherwise they conquer you.
It's true.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nana. Thanks for hanging out with my YouTube friends.
YouTube friends, go for it.
Yeah, go live your best lives,
Yeah,
guys, with
yeah.
advice from Nana.
Have a good time every day. You might have some bad times too, but that's all right. Nothing is good all the time. So
Yeah, that's like so wise.
but sometimes the bad stuff isn't so bad either. It really isn't. You might learn
That's true.
something.
Sometimes we're surprised by the
We
things
are.
we get out of the bad stuff.
We are.
It's true.
Yep.
Thank you, Nana. Okay. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.